Oh, certainly. So we want to distinguish between these different surveys that the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, publishes. So every month, the BLS will publish one set of data that is from a survey of about 660,000 businesses. And that's where we get these monthly job numbers that we hear so much about. And not only have those numbers proven to be pretty inaccurate in that they are consistently revised down over the last year, but on top of that, if we look at broader surveys that cover not just several 100,000 businesses, but cover several million businesses, the numbers are totally different. In fact, this latest one, the business employment dynamics that you mentioned, shows that the economy isn't even adding jobs anymore. It's been losing them. Also, we just got additional data from a quarterly census that the BLS uses, and that, although it's very delayed, meaning we don't get the numbers as quickly as we do with like these monthly surveys, the quarterly census is a great data set because of how wide-ranging it is. It covers millions of businesses and over 95% of American jobs. So it's pretty accurate compared to a survey of just a few 100,000 businesses. What does that show? It shows that job growth last year was overstated by almost 800,000. In other words, 1 in every 4 jobs that was supposedly created last year never even existed. It's as if you took 3 months of job gains from 2024 and just simply wiped them off the calendar. So we have a lot of conflicting data right now, but what we would typically consider to be the better or at least more reliable data sources are painting a far less rosy picture of the economy than the other data, the ones that unfortunately get the most headlines.
Now, on that, just to understand your perspective, the headline figures, the ones that you say in retrospect looks like, at least as of last year, may have greatly overstated the job growth. It's not that the Biden administration changed what statistics they were reporting, right? It's just the one that was normal to be used has these limitations. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, to be clear, this is a good point. To be clear, I don't personally have any evidence of wrongdoing at the BLS. I don't even know anyone at the BLS who works on these figures. So I can't say that there is anything unethical going on here, but there are a lot of mathematical flukes which BLS should be aware of and they should be taking care of, but they're not. And that's helping to produce a lot of these statistical anomalies. I can give you one very good example, which is the birth-death model. And it doesn't have to do anything with human births and deaths, where we adjust the population based on those factors, but rather births and deaths of businesses. So because these monthly job estimates can't actually survey every single business in the country and get a true census of the number of payrolls, instead, one of the things that they rely on is applications to start new businesses and also information on businesses that are being destroyed. In other words, firms that are going out of business. Now, the reason that's important is because when a company goes out of business, all of the jobs they're at, all of the people used to be employed at that business, those are gone. But likewise, when a new business starts, that is, we can assume, going to employ people. Now, how many people is that going to employ? What kinds of jobs are these going to be? Those are all assumptions that we have to make when we're trying to actually estimate each month how many jobs are added or lost in total in the economy. And so they have to rely on applications to start new businesses. Well, those things have been incredibly elevated post-COVID because of all the firms that went out of business during government-imposed lockdowns in 2020 and even well into 2021. So because the applications to start new businesses have been abnormally elevated, the BLS has been assuming this huge amount of job growth, which just simply hasn't materialized. And what the reason I say they should know better is because this effect has been well known for quite a while now. The data is out there. Anyone can verify it. I'm not saying something that's proprietary information here. And yet the BLS has done nothing to correct the problem. And that's just one of the reasons why these monthly statistics are continuously revised down as better data becomes available and confirms that the initial estimates were just too overly optimistic.
Okay, so again, here it's just more to understand exactly the situation, at least as you see it. The model, the birth death models and so forth that they're using, if I understood you, you're saying going through the COVID, the lockdowns, and then relaxing those constraints, that type of model is giving spurious results, and they should have known that. But is that the same type of model that was being used in 2019? That's what I'm trying to isolate. Is it that the current techniques they use to report the figures to the press and to put on the BLS press releases, is that what they were using all along? And just because of some weird circumstances having to do with COVID and other factors, they're giving really bad output right now? Or is it that they actually have been tweaking the models all along, and one might think that they're picking parameters in a way to make the numbers look better?
Sure. Well, most of the methodologies at BLS haven't actually changed over the last 5 years. And so, for the most part, the same procedures from 2019 have been followed through 2024. Now, are there a few tweaks that have been made? Are there some substantive changes along the way? Sure, absolutely. But most of the drivers behind these, what I would say are erroneous numbers, have been in place that entire time. So, as you said, it's much more circumstantial than anything else. But again, as statisticians, when we observe these types of anomalies, we need to be aware of them, and then we need to act to correct them. If you had an assumption that worked fine in 2019, but no longer works in 2024, then you need to change your assumption. You owe that to the American people.
Yeah. And the distinction I'm drawing here, EJ, like, for example, Paul Krugman, who is one of my favorite go-to guys as far as people who are usually on the other side of an issue from me, is like he's on social media posting stuff every once in a while about, well, if you look at the CPI taking out food, energy, transportation, and housing, Biden's crushing it. You know what I mean? Like this, don't listen to Fox News. And so I was saying something like there, even though, yes, there is a case to be made about, oh, well, you want to strip out volatile things and blah, blah, look at the core under. But I know if Donald Trump were president and the headline CPI was rising at the way it's been doing under this last term, that Krugman wouldn't be using that metric. So that's what I mean, that, yeah, people can come up with ways of massaging these numbers based on what they want the outcome to be. But just to be clear, so you're saying it's not so much that the people at BLS threw out their old methodology and brought in a new one to try to make Biden look better. It's just because of recent circumstances, the way they've been doing it is really, like, those assumptions are not holding up. And so the numbers coming out of this procedure are much more misleading now than they would have been 5 years ago.
Exactly.